Thanks, Colin, and thank you for listening to us present today. As entrepreneurs, we're always looking for that opportunity to get in front of a large crowd of interested people and hear what we have to say. I did my studies here at QUT as well, so I'm familiar with this room and under examination and lectures and so forth, so it's quite surreal to be on the other side talking back. So Brew2Venue is, okay, so we're a B2B platform for supporting independent breweries and getting their product through to venues. So let's just describe the problem that we're sort of trying to solve, which is craft beer consumption by volume in this country is around about 3% versus, you know, the UK got 12%, even New Zealand across the ditch is 15%, and the US it's up around 20% and growing. So what prompted us to think about this industry is what is it about Australia that we can't get craft beer into more places? And you know, because culturally we're around the same, we love our beer. Craft beer sort of entered the markets at the same time. There's no real kind of access issue or anything in the regulatory and so forth. So the question being, well, what's going on? And so our story is, well, it's not quite right. Sorry, last minute edit there. Okay, so our story is I love craft beer, and I was talking to the breweries themselves and going to the venues and saying, hey, what's going on? Why can't I get your craft beer into these venues? And there, you know, over many beers, we worked out that, you know, there's a duopoly that's sitting at the top, and they basically control the supply chain. So naturally we started to think, well, maybe a two-sided marketplace will help out, and as our previous entrepreneurs have found for their markets, it's quite a similar challenge. But you'll be familiar with this kind of an eBay style of marketplace. This is kind of like what we initially created, and I'll talk about that in a second as to why we had to take this down. So obviously we want to just connect the craft beer people, the breweries, with their stock list, put it out there in front of the venues, as a direct sale. So what happens right now is basically, if you're a brewery, you have a sales team, and if you don't have a sales team, you go through a distributor. And about 80% of craft beer is basically put through a distributor, and they themselves have their own sales reps, and they go out to the venue. So what problem are we trying to solve here is basically when you talk to the venues, they have in Brisbane 10 or 11 sales reps going out to them every week, having a chat, you know, taking their beer and not really offering anything of value. So what we're trying to do is basically make that one repository on a platform, a website that will show all the beers that are available to the venue. They can just go onto their order what they like when they want it. So that takes me back to what our problem is. So when we talked to the breweries, they were, you know, a little. Initially, they were really excited about this. The venues were really excited about this. We created this eBay style of marketplace, and they absolutely hated it. That was back in March, and we've since tried to pivot around those problems. Basically, some of the feedback that we got from the breweries is that you know, it's not. You know, it's right now it's a race to the bottom. When you put your brand up against other brands, you know, they're basically looking for what the cheapest the price is, and for the venues, they just don't really want to change up what they're doing. So what we've done now is we've actually sided with the customer and saying, okay, well, the venues have unanimously told us that the sales reps are doing a really poor job. And so we are basically just trying to give them the access to what the sales rep has in their hand, update it frequently, and just put the control back into their hands as to what they want when they want it. So for the supplier, if we do succeed here, you've got an increase in reach to venues because right now the duopoly controls a lot of those contracts and so forth. We're trying to open this up to more venues, obviously. So whenever a brewery, produces some great beer that people want, they can put it basically to any venue that the patron wants to drink at. And for the retailer, obviously, it's just convenient. You're not having to please 10 sales reps every week. You just get onto your computer and you order what you want. So our how-to statement today is really how do we educate potential users of the benefits of Brew2Venue. This has been probably our hardest problem to deal with because, as we've heard, you have to have that face-to-face relationship and build up that trust initially. And it's that 10 or 12 or 13 points of contact before you convert that customer. So if I can just sum up what we're doing right now is basically we're doing the reverse marketplace, which is satisfy, get all the venues on board, to the point where they're actually demanding of their suppliers that if they want to get their beers into this venue, they've got to go through this more convenient way for them. So I might just open up to questions.
I've got some questions. Talking beer here, there has to be questions. Otherwise,
yep.
What sort of scale are you thinking? Like, is it something that would the retailers be sort of small bars, or would they, like, is it your sort of boutique bars that are squirreled away in West End and that sort of thing, or?
So when I spoke to those really cool niche bars, they've actually gone through the pain point of seeking out all the cool craft beers and so forth. They were prepared to do that effort because that's what just differentiates them from the other competitors. So we don't really see that we're solving their problem initially. Over time, when it becomes easier for them to go through a website as opposed to getting on the phone all the time, then they might come on board. But for us, it's actually about those venues that have wanted to have craft beer in as a premium product to bring in a different patron who's going to spend a little bit more per pint. They're the ones who are sort of sitting on the edge thinking, well, how do you get into this thing? How do you... And this is a problem I've experienced myself in trying to get in touch with these craft brewers. They're not really that open to new business and ideas and so forth. So we're breaking down that barrier for those venues.
How are you going to compete with the likes of Caliber Trading when you go into big venues?
Caliber Trading.
Yeah, they do a very similar thing where they go like 4 pints and you can put 2 bars. How are you going to compete with that?
Is that as a B2C or?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's different about B2C as opposed to B2B is basically you have to set yourself up as a distributor with a warehouse. So you're actually buying the product in and then distributing it on volume. What we're doing differently is we're not a distributor. We are just providing that service to connect the two parties. Sorry.
Tinder for beer.
Yeah, Tinder for beer is what he said. You just have to swipe right and you get your beers. Sorry.
I just checked the website of what is that called? The website of
My website right now. So I had an e-commerce platform up there publicly, and I had to take that down simply because it upset brewers. And so right now it's more of a member marketplace, so closed behind the scenes, and so yeah, we're repivoting around that.
So how can we really make the beer, which is no stock of the website and the gaming install?
You-
From the suppliers to the
Right. So one of the good things about craft beer is that there's a limited sort of production run of products. So there's maybe 6 beers, for example. That's a really manageable number of products, and it's very rare for them to change up the recipe. So it's almost like a static product page, and all they have to update regularly is basically the amount of the quantity that's available. And then they're on maybe a 4 to 6 week rotation. So once a batch of beer is being produced, you know how much quantity, and then you just have to kind of keep track of what other sales channels they've been able to sell that product. But it's a fairly simple problem to get around.
Last question. Okay, thank you very much.
Cool, thank you.